Alright guys, welcome back to Burning Rubber Garage. It's been a little bit since we've touched one of these 50s. I think it was clear last year. I wanted to come out and do a nice review on it for an adult because you're going to buy this for your kid, but most of the time you're going to end up riding it and having a little fun too. But I went to go fire this guy up and it will not idle. It'll rev out just fine, so as long as you keep the gas going. That lets me know there's probably something wrong with the pilot jet. Not the main jet, but the pilot jet. That's what's kind of messing up the idle. I did crank it up a little bit, the idle, which I hate to do because then you get a really rough shift into first from neutral. So we'll get the idle back down and we'll take a look at that pilot jet. A couple things you're going to want: Phillips, flathead, and it looks like a 5/16. Probably supposed to be a metric, but they'll all do the same. So let's go ahead and start digging into this. I haven't actually cleaned the carb on this. This is still a fairly new bike, but it did sit all winter. We did pull them out and play a little bit, but for the most part, we didn't do a ton with these bikes in the snow. Beast came out quite a bit, so it's always good to get some of them out. You're not going to always get all of them out here, so I'm going to take you along for the ride here. We're going to get this guy put away. It looks a little different than some of the other ones I've got with some of these tubes here. Maybe by the time I get them, those are just all taken off. So stay tuned. We'll get started on this. We'll probably start by removing the air intake, and then we'll remove it from the actual little, I guess you could call that a manifold. It's just a little bend in the pipe. So come along with me. Alright, one thing you can do if you don't want to make your hands for sure smell like gas is right down here you've got at the very bottom the screw, and there's a tube coming off of it. If you take that off, start to unscrew it there, it will let the fuel flow out of the bowl. That way you don't get it all over your hands. You're going to get nasty anyways, but you don't need to smell like gas if you can avoid it. So make sure you shut the fuel off. Otherwise, as you let fuel run out, more fuel is just going to take its place. So take a flathead there, unscrew it. Shouldn't take very long. They're not very big bowls. You won't even probably have a quarter, probably not even an eighth of a cup in there. So I think we're good. Make sure you tighten it back up. It's just one last step. Give it a good tighten there. See, there wasn't very much in there. We're still probably going to leak a little bit, but that's okay. Alright guys, there's a reason why I like the older bikes better. One is they're easier to work on. This guy is kind of a pain. I don't know who made the changes on some of these newer bikes, but they've got all this new stuff in here. To take the petcock off, you'd have to drain all the fuel, and the bolt I need to move the intake is right there. So I could probably get it, but we're going to try and go a different route here. I'm just going to try and undo the front and see if we can get the carburetor out that way. So let's go ahead. There's two bolts up there. There is a spacer, so be careful that you don't let the spacer fall to the ground. I forgot my magnet trace. We'll just set that right there. You want this screw right here undone. Push it back so it'll come up the carburetor. Whatever you do, don't try and pry that there. You can snap the lip. I'm going to be in the shot here for a second. How do I know you can snap the lip? Because I've seen it. There we go. So like I said, these are probably supposed to be metrics, but why not America, right? So I'm using a 5/16 to try and get this out. Let's see if we can move this back even a little bit and get that spacer out and get some room here. So there's your spacer that comes out. We got the two bolts, the spacer out. See if we can get this carb to break free. I don't know if we can. Hell yeah, we can. There we go. So there's your carb out. Hands are a little slick, so I apologize. We are still filming. That's good. I don't remember it clicking, so that's even better. So now what we got here is you've got your carb here. This right up top here is your throttle. As you can see, let's see if we can see it. Kind of hard to see in there. Let's put the choke back, maybe then you can see it. It just lifts up a little plate in there. I guess it's not a plate, it's kind of a cylinder. Lifts it up, and that's what lets you accelerate. It allows more air in, and more air comes over the carburetors, kind of goes down, does like a swirl effect, and brings fuel up with it. So no fuel injection on this, just good old-fashioned carburetor. So there's where your fuel goes in. It goes from the petcock right in the fuel, fills up the bowl. When I get in here, I'll tell you a little more about it. Your choke here, this is kind of what it does there. Blocks it off, just lets a little bit of air go through, for when it's really cold. Kind of fattens up the mixture, I guess, a little bit there, and then you kind of open it up once you're ready to roll. So we do have a little bit of oil on here. I don't know if that was from me changing it or what, but it's kind of a mess there. So I'm probably going to need a screwdriver to play with the idle when we're done, but we'll do with that in a minute. We need a pair of pliers here to grab that. Let's see if I can. I don't think these will do it, but maybe. Let's try it. These needle nose. I don't want to screw it up. That's the last thing I want to do, but they're not on there very tight, so be careful. There is a spring in here. Sometimes they can shoot, other times they're attached. Depends on who's messed with the bike before you've got it. So as you see this here, this is where we pulled out. You want to be very careful with which way this thing goes in. You see there's a whole slit down the side here. That means there's a piece down in there that lines up. There's your needle, which allows the fuel to come up. It is pretty tensioned in there, the spring. Just set it aside for right now. Here's a breather tube. We're not going to need to take that off, but we are going to need to take the fuel line off. And she's going to drip, because why not? Let's grab our drain. So here's what we're working with here. Here's our carburetor. Pretty simple. Something so much fun can be had for pretty cheap. I think these are like 20 bucks, but make sure you get the good ones. The Chinese knockoff ones, no offense to anyone that's Chinese, but they suck. They won't last very long. You'll be regretting you did it. So spend a little bit extra and get a name brand one. It works better. This bike will probably see a big bore kit if my future plans hold up for it. So let's go ahead and dig into this. Let's make sure you guys can see me. Let's take that down just a little bit here. It might spill, so let's put this in the bowl. Nope. That's why when you start, drain it with that screw right there. It will run out right to the bottom there. Now that we got this here, let's put that out of your way. That screw right there drains out that pipe right there. So what you're going to want to do, I like the choke out of the way, tip it upside down, grab your Phillips. These can be on there pretty good if it's a bike that's a little bit older. This one's new, so they should come right out. Wish I had my metal tray. There's one screw. We'll just set them right in there. The nice thing about a metal magnetic tray is when you put your bolts in there, they don't fall. You don't lose them. Even if you kick the thing, it's going to stay. So my lovely wife is going to go get me mine, I think. Plus they're magnetized, so they just stay up. Let me show you what I mean. These two screws right here could get bumped around and lost. They're not going anywhere now. So this is only like $2 or $3. I think I got it from Harbor Freight. I call it Hobo Freight. Perfect. The nice thing about this, I can put these two on the other side, kind of like keep it left to right, and then when I go right to left to go back and put everything back how it was. So now that I got those screws out, this is probably going to spill a little bit, but that's okay. There we go. That's pretty dang clean. Makes me wonder what we got going on here. There's your main jet. So if you were looking to step up a jet, that's the one you would pull out. There's your pilot jet. But then this one, the pilot jet isn't going to come out. So we are going to have to just spray it while it's in there. So, all right, guys, I want to show you this jet, the main jet here. I had to get a little bigger screwdriver. Like I said, I haven't tore one of these newer bikes down. Seems very similar, but there's a few things on it that are a little different. So here is your jet. Let me put it in my hand, see if you can see. That's really all you're looking at here. What you'll want to do is take this, hold it up to the light, see if you can see through it. I can see through it, but I'm still going to give it a shot because I've got it here. So, all right, so what I do is I take this little nozzle that comes with it, you always lose, put it in there, and you should be able to spray through it. You should see a pretty good spray come through. If not, you might have to use one of your little, I've always used a little wire bristle off a brush for a barbecue and just kind of run it through it there. Now I can see really good through it, so we are set. Put it back in the same way it came out. Nice way to remember that is, got to have the screwdriver end up so that you can tighten it in. There we go. So the other thing you got here, this is your float. If we wanted to, we'd take that screw off and you can get to the whole float assembly. What happens is there's a little plunger in there, and as this goes up, you can see it's right under here. Let me grab my little there's a plunger right under that little brace right there. Can they see that? Right under that right there is a little plunger. So when the fuel comes in and fills up, it lifts this float up, and that's what blocks the fuel off from sending more in. As it uses it, this will drop, let more in, and that's how you keep your bowl full. So if you're having issues with fuel coming in, that could be stuck. This is a pretty new carburetor. I think we're good on that one. We are going to spray this down though. I mean, we're definitely going to spray this down. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put that red nozzle, lovely, the magnet stuck to the can, that's great, up to what we got the pilot jet right there, and let's just see what we can, if we can get it out. This is going to spray everywhere, so be careful and don't spray directly back to your eyes. It's a very small hole. That should do it. Let's just go ahead and spray this guy off while we got it here. Doesn't hurt to use this stuff. It evaporates, does make your hands dry out pretty good. So, I sprayed that. We've got it here. It's hard where I can't remove that to make sure I've got light going through. We're just going to have to hope for the best on this one, unfortunately. Still got a few more things I want to spray off right here. If your carb's really bad, you could soak it in it. It'd probably take a can or two. But for now, we're just doing some basic maintenance here, spraying it off. This stuff is flammable, so be careful. So let's take this carb, set it back down. I'll do the camera upside down here. There is only one way the carb can go, so you want to be sure and put it back together that way. So we've got it there. The screws line up. Well, they kind of line up. With a little bit of force, they'll line up. I'm just kidding. Don't force anything on these. If you have to put a lot of pressure onto these, then you're not doing something right. One thing I forgot to mention, make sure you put the jet in snug. If you mess with the float, there's going to be a little spring and pin and everything in there. Just make sure you get stuff put back the way it came out. So I like to do finger tight on that one, and the other one I can't do finger tight because I don't think I can get my big old fingers in there. Hopefully this is a nice video for you guys that have never touched one of these and go pay. It's expensive to have your bike tuned up there, when really all it needs is this and an oil change. Now if you're going in having some other things done on it, then you might be getting your money's worth. But for a lot of people, they'll sell a bike. I can't tell you how many I've bought that aren't running, and I get it home and I have it running within 10-15 minutes. It's ridiculous and sad. But, you know, I'm not complaining. I've got many a bikes that way and had a lot of fun with bikes. Me and a buddy used to buy them, cruise them for a while, and then flip them. Cheapest one I ever bought was 80 bucks. And the throttle was stuck on it too, but we used a little bit of the carb cleaner on the throttle. Took a hammer to it as well. It was a thumb throttle on a little four-wheeler, which you shouldn't have done, but after it soaked, it broke right free, and I ended up selling that for $500-600 bucks after we used it. It was a little Suzuki. So we've got the carb here. It looks fairly clean. Let's set you back down here. See what we're looking at. You can still see there's a little bit of dirt here, so I'm just going to go ahead and spray this. I'm going to get in there and really hose it. I say do it. You want to go back down the top, I say do it. You're not going to hurt anything. You might hurt the paints on your car, but we're not spraying it that crazy here. So we've got it there. I've got my paper towel. You can see some of the stuff here. It will wipe off a lot of it. We should be ready to put this guy back in and see if it'll fire back up. The other thing I might do before I do that is put some new gas in. So after it sits, I try and buy what they call, it's a clean 88 around here. Some of you guys might be lucky, have a clean 91, meaning there's no ethanol. You can go to a car that's like been sitting since the 40s or 50s, and a lot of times the gas is still good before the ethanol. The gas didn't deteriorate, and you can have it fire on that gas. I don't recommend it, but you could. So that's the cool part about that. So now we've got this guy right here. Let's see if we can get over here, move some of this stuff out of my way. Doesn't look like anything's been really hurt on this guy, so it all just a visual inspection is always nice. There was a little hair there. Anything you can prevent from going through the motor is always good. I don't think we broke that. Sometimes that's a big common one. People rip the plastic right there, doing stupid stuff. I think everything looks in pretty good shape. So what we got to do now is put it all back together the way we had it. Here is your throttle. And if you get confused, there's a little one right there. There's a little, I call it a gack, I guess, in the corner there. And the slide on the side. Right there, you can see there's a couple things. Let's see if I can get that light just right up there for you. This one has it higher, that one has it lower. So we've got to get this guy back in like this. You might have to play with it a little bit, get it in there. Once you do, get it, tighten that top on. Screw it. I'm just going to do it finger tight because I don't think it needs to be any tighter. So we've got that on there. I'm going to hold off on putting the fuel line in just because it's one more line that I'm going to have to be bending around to try and get there, and it shouldn't be that hard once it's on. So now we're going to bring this guy in. Let's see here. I think we had it like that. Get that air intake to accept this guy here. There we go. So now we've got the carb back in for the most part. Now we've got to go ahead and find where I put the spacer. Put the spacer back in and then put the, I don't know if you go gasket to gasket, I don't think you do. Let's go ahead and wipe this guy off here. I have to move you guys again. Probably be doing a lot of editing on this one because it's just a lot of me rambling, but it's what I do. So if no one's around, I just talk to myself. So you can see this has a gasket on one side, and this does not have a gasket on this side, but this already has a gasket on that side, so I'm thinking the gasket will sit against that, and this will sit against the intake right there. So if I replay the video and find out I'm wrong, looks like I'll be back out here putting in that the other direction. So this can be a very tough one to get back in, but remember, if you get one in, get it to just start to accept it like that. There's a little plate right there. Put my finger on it, push it in, should be good on that one. Come around from the other side. Sorry you guys won't be able to see this, but it's pretty self-explanatory on that. I'm just going to have to wiggle the carb back and forth till it accepts it. So, once we got that on there, wish I could find my tool. There it is. One thing you want to do so you don't get super cranky is make sure you're going on tight, not loose. And you should be clicking this way, tight that way. Might even have to just do it by hand for a second. Alright, that one should be good. Let's bend over that side and get it. This guy goes right there and then they hold together. So I put my drain line back to go with that and the breather tube. We've got the fuel line to reach around. This one can be kind of a tricky one to get on. Let me show you a little tip here. Take this, pinch it, bend it back. Slide the hose over that little nipple there. Once it goes on there, then with your fingers on this one, it's really nice. You can just squeeze it and slide it over. Maybe. It's a lot harder when I'm trying to film without being in there, so almost got it. And then we just got the one other line here to all that hard work. You want to make sure it pays off the first time. Make sure your key is on, run is on, fuel is on. If you just barely turn it on, it might take a second for the fuel to roll. The other thing you want to do, we did lose a little bit of fuel. Make sure you got fuel. I'm doing pretty good on that one. Those are just some common problems that can end up making you a little cranky when you don't need to be. I've got my screwdriver here in case we need to play with the idle. First kick. I'd say it seems like we've done pretty good here. Let's check out throttle response. rev up. That's a little much. So probably a little high on the idle screw. But you want to be able to not have a hesitation where it has to go like come back up. So you want to be able to just kind of stab the gas and have it go. So hopefully you guys learned from that and are now able to help work on your own bikes. Next up is a review on this bike, so hopefully we'll see you then. If you like what you see, subscribe. I appreciate everybody who's new who has subscribed. Thanks for the support. Pretty soon we'll be working on that one, and that one. That one. I mean the Mustang, the Camaro, and the Nova. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later.